Good morning, dear students. Today we will study a poem by Robert Browning, My Last Duchess. First, we will have little introduction about the poet Robert Browning, 19th century Victorian poet. Rather, you can say he was one of the most important poets of the Victorian era, known for his mastery of the dramatic monologue. He takes certain striking individuals at a critical moment in their lives, plumbs the depth of their nature, and compels them to reveal the innermost secrets of their lives. The dramatic monologue, which does not allow the reader to identify the speaker with the poet, distances Browning from the subjectivity style of a poet like Shelley, who had a profound influence on Browning's work. The main features of Browning's poetry are psychological insights, analytical stability, and the power of dramatic interpretation. As far as Browning is concerned, he was an incorrigible optimist who believed in the sanctity and freedom of the individual. His poetry is a protest against the pessimistic mood of his age, as it is evident that Victorian age was overladen with pessimism, and at that critical juncture, poets like Robert Browning generated a hope of optimism and comforted the grieved minds of the people at that time. So, rightly, he has a reputation of being an obscure and ambiguous poet. He is the widest ranging of Victorian poets in his intellectual and cultural concerns. He is full of optimism. As far as the poem is concerned, My Last Duchess is one of Browning's most widely known dramatic monologues. The poem first appeared in Dramatical Lyrics, published in 1842. The poem is loosely based on historical events involving a Renaissance aristocrat, Alfonso, the Duke of Ferrara. The Duke is the speaker in the poem, and the listener is the emissary who has come to negotiate the Duke's marriage to the daughter of a count. So, the Duke begins by referring to My Last Duchess, whose portrait hangs on the wall. She looks alive, and the Duke attributes this quality to the skill of the painter. After saying that he alone opens the curtain, the Duke promptly begins to catalogue all the faults he found in her behavior. The Duchess, according to him, had a heart too soon made glad by such things as watching the sunset or riding her white mule across the terrace. She should not have responded with pleasure to anything or anyone but the Duke himself. She failed to appreciate his 900-year-old name. Browning allows the reader to infer what kind of man the Duke is via his monologue. The Duke pictures his wife as unfaithful, but Browning's use of irony makes the reader aware of the Duke's jealousy and possessiveness. The Duke seems to assume that the envoy will understand his logic and his treatment of the Duchess. The chilling statement, "then all smiles stop together," gives the reader an inkling as to what really happened to the Duchess. The poem has all the elements of a dramatic monologue, a speaker speaking to a listener, and a sense of action and movement as on stage. The speaker is clearly distinct from the poet. It reveals the objective and real situation behind the facade of polite words, the Duke's morbid state of mind, and the innocence and graciousness of the Duchess. So I hope you have the idea of the poem. Now we will go line by line and we will understand the poem in detail. So let's start going line by line. My last Duchess. That is my last Duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder. Now Fra Pendeloff's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will not please you sit and look at her? I said. Fra Pendeloff by design, for never read strangers like you that pictures countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I. So, in these lines, as already it is described, the poem is a dramatic monologue. You must understand what is a dramatic monologue. Mono means single, log means speaker, where there is only one speaker and the listener doesn't respond, he only interprets through the words of the speaker, and the speaker is different than the poet. Dramatic means the poem starts dramatically, sudden. A life situation is taken, and the poem starts at a sudden incident. So that is the dramatic monologue. Here, the situation is that the Duke is receiving a guest, and the guest is an emissary from a messenger from a neighboring count who has come to the Duke with a proposal of Count's daughter's marriage with the Duke. So the messenger is there, and the Duke introduces, hinting towards the painting on the wall. The Duke says to the messenger, hinting towards the painting, that the painting belongs to his last Duchess, and the painting is such lively that the Duchess looks alive, and the Duke calls this painting a wonder. He further explains to the messenger that famous painter Fra Pendeloff painted it. He remained busy for a full day, and then only he could complete this masterpiece of art. He says the messengers to sit and to look at the painting, and he explains that the painting is designed by famous painter Fra Pandolf, and all visitors, like the messengers, they show their eagerness to know how such a painting has been painted. So he says that although he is the only person who draws the curtain and none else, and he says that the visitors show eagerness as though they may be asking how such a beautiful, how such a lively painting has been created. So, how such a glance came there? So, not the first are you to turn and ask thus, sir, it was not her husband's presence only called the spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Fra Pendlev chanced to say, her mental lapse or my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was gutsy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. So, further, through these lines, the Duke explains the spot of joy on the cheeks of the Duchess, which is the source of attraction for the onlooker, for every visitor. He says that this spot of joy is created, perhaps this spot of joy is created not with the presence of her husband, but it is chance happening. For example, Fra Pandolf, the painter, might have said to the Duchess that her mantle laps over my lady's wrist, that the cloth is covering the Duchess' wrist, Duchess' beautiful wrist, and the Duchess should little bit draw the cloth and make visible the beautiful wrist so that the painter can paint that. Or the painter might have said that the shyness, the red spot created with shyness, and that runs through the neck, from the cheek to the neck, out of shyness. So, with these words, the Duchess might have felt shyness, and out of these flattering words from the painter, this spot of joy is created. Further, the Duke explains, a heart, how shall I say? He says, for calling up that spot of joy, she had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She linked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, it was all one. My favor at her breast, the drooping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries, some officious fool broke in the orchard for her. The white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. So, in these lines, the Duke continues looking towards the painting and explaining the nature, revealing the true nature of the Duchess. Through these lines, he explains that the Duchess was of very simple nature, very pleasing nature. She felt happiness at each and every ordinary incident. For example, he says that she had a heart that became happy very easily. The Duchess was of such a nature that she could be made happy very easily. She could be impressed very easily. She was of such a simple nature that whatever she looked, she became happy. She liked whatever she looked, she liked everything and became happy. And further, he says, for example, the drooping of the daylight in the west. The drooping of daylight in the west. Rather, you can say the scene of sunset, or the bow of cherries, some officious fool, some small, some ordinary person, and who broke some boughs of cherries from the orchard, from the garden, and offered her. She became very glad. At such ordinary incidents, she felt gladness. She was very glad. And further, he gives another example. She felt happiness, same happiness, while riding on white mule around the trace. So, she felt happy. She was glad on all these ordinary incidents. The happiness, the gladness was equal as she became in the same manner glad on ordinary incidents as she became glad on a valuable gift gifted by the Duke, so that the Duke did not like. She could not differentiate, she was so simple that she could not differentiate between the Duke's gift and the gift in form of a bow of cherries by an ordinary person. And here lies the problem. This created the problem for the Duchess because the Duke felt jealous. The Duke did not like such behavior of the Duchess. The Duke thought that such a behavior is unbecoming for the Duchess and it is below the dignity of a Duchess. Further, he says, he thanked man, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. Who would stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear, to such an one and say just this or that in you disgust me, here you miss or there exceed the mark, and if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stop. Further, the Duke keeps on talking and revealing the real nature of the Duchess. He says that her last wife, the Duchess, was of so simple nature that she thanked one and thanked everybody. Whoever praised her, whoever gave a small gift, she thanked. The Duke says, no problem. Thanks, no problem. But in the same fashion, she thanked the Duke when he gifted, when he gifted what? When he gifted a necklace, a valuable necklace. And the Duke, who has a name of 900 years, and such a valuable gift from such an important person who has a history of 900 years and who is Duke, who is her husband. So she thanked in the same manner. What is this? The Duke did not like this behavior. Although the Duchess was of very simple nature, she could not read, she could not understand the insight, the inner feelings of the Duke, her husband. So the Duke says that such behavior made him restless, made him troublesome. And he says he might have easily pointed out, easily told that such a behavior from her side does not please him. He does not feel happy on such a behavior. While listening such remarks, she might have corrected herself without any blame, without any protest. The Duchess might have accepted the advice of the Duke, and she might have corrected her behavior. But the Duke says that on his part, telling the Duchess that her behavior does not please him and she needs correction here and there, that will be a stooping, that will be a below dignity for him, and he never liked to stoop, he never liked to behave below dignity. So he did not advise the Duchess, and he kept on tolerating this insolent behavior of the Duchess. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grieved, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. Further, he says he throws light on other aspect of the Duchess. She was very simple, she was very innocent and of smiling nature. She used to smile whatever she used to see. When ordinary incidents happen, she will smile. Whatever she will look, she will smile. When her husband will come, the presence of her husband will also make her smile. But this behavior did not please the Duke. The Duke did not like this behavior. Actually, what he means, the Duke means that there should be some difference. There should be difference in smile when some ordinary person comes and when her husband, the Duke, comes. The Duchess should understand this. But she was of so simple nature that she could not understand this. And now the Duke could not tolerate this simple behavior of the Duchess, and he gave commands, he gave order, and all smiles stopped together. You can understand what would have happened. He gave commands and all smiles stopped together. Easily we can infer, we can understand what would have happened. Very sad, very sad happening. The innocent, the simple person like Duchess became the victim of a genius, of a tyrant, of a proud man like Duke, and she was killed. There she stands as if alive. Further, the Duke explains to the messenger that there she stands in the picture as if alive. Willn't please you rise? We will meet the company below. Then, I repeat, the Count your master. Okay. Then the Duke says to the messenger that please now you stand up, now please you get up, and now we will go downstairs and people are waiting for us and we will meet them. Then I repeat, the Count your master's non munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self, as I ought at starting, is my object. Nay, we will go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though taming a sea horse, thought a rarity, which class of Innsbruck cost in bronze for me. So, in these lines, the Duke explains, and also through these lines, the true nature of the Duke is revealed. He says that, I repeat, I once again say that the Count is famous for his generosity. The Count, the proposal of whose daughter of marriage is brought by the messenger, the Duke says that the Count is famous, is well known everywhere for his generosity and his ample warrant, and this is the sufficient guarantee that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed, that the expectation of rich dowry of the Duke will not be disallowed. He says that the Count is famous for his generosity and that is sufficient guarantee that he will he will not disallow the expectation of a rich dowry of the duke. So, in these lines, the selfish nature, the greedy nature of the duke is exposed. And further, he says that though his fair daughter's self as I avowed at starting is my object, outwardly he says that although the real aim of the marriage is that he liked the beautiful daughter of the count, and that is the aim, primary object of his marriage. In simple words, the duke, in straightforward words, doesn't demand for dowry. In simple words, he says that he is marrying for the sake of the beautiful daughter of the count, whom he likes very much. But actually, he is of a very greedy nature. He expects rich dowry from the count. Further, he says, nay, we will go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though taming a seahorse, thought a rarity. Which class of inns were cast in bronze for me? Then he says to his guest, the messenger, that now let us go downstairs. And while passing through the picture gallery, he says that look, this picture in which the sea god Neptune is taming a seahorse. And he says that such a picture, such an art is rare. Through these lines, he wants to prove that he is a lover of art. And he says this picture, Claes of Innsbruck has made in bronze for him. So, in the final lines, he tries to expose himself as a lover of art and painting. So, it's a beautiful dramatic monologue in which lot of irony is used, and the contrasting nature of a pair, husband and wife, the Duke and Duchess, is exposed. And also, it has a good moral lesson that how simplicity pays heavily. In real life, a man in relations, man should be quite wise. Man should have a good understanding of life and relations, and by merely very simple and innocent nature will not help out. Now we will go through some textual questions and try to highlight more about the poem. Small answer type questions, one word or two or a sentence. What does the Duke call the painting? The Duke calls the painting a wonder, a wonder. Who was easily impressed? The Duchess was easily impressed. How did the Duchess thank man? The Duchess thanked man with smile. Whose smile stopped together? The Duchess' smile stopped together. Whose statue did Claes of Innsbruck cast in bronze for the Duke? The statue of Neptune, the sea god, taming a horse. Claes of Innsbruck cast in bronze for the Duke. Who is the speaker in the poem? The Duke of Ferrara is the speaker in the poem. Who is the listener in the poem? A messenger from a neighboring count is the listener in the poem. What proposal did the envoy bring for the Duke? The envoy brought a proposal of marriage of a neighboring count's daughter for the Duke. Where did the Duke take the envoy to? The Duke took the envoy to downstairs. Who painted the portrait of the last Duchess? Farah Pendolov, a famous painter, painted the portrait of the last Duchess. Now some small answer type questions. Why did the Duke want to remarry? Okay, the Duke wanted to remarry as he was a widower now, and also he was greedy and he expected a rich dowry in the marriage. What was the envoy curious about? The envoy was curious about knowing something of the beautiful painting on the wall and how this so lovely and lively painting has been painted, where a spot of joy, the main attraction for every visitor, is there in the painting. What does the Duke say about the temperament of the Duchess? The Duke is the only speaker in the poem, and through his speech, it is evident that the Duchess was of very simple nature. The Duchess was purely innocent. The Duchess was having a noble heart. She had no ill will. She had no cunningness. She had no selfishness and nothing, no evil. She had nothing evil in her nature. She was so beautiful, she was so noble, she was so innocent, and she was very simple by nature. A personality full of happiness was of the Duchess. But this simplicity became a trouble, proved fatal for the Duchess, as her husband was of a very contrary nature. He did not like such nature of his Duchess, and he ordered. He could not. He felt jealous and proud, and he felt it below dignity. He thought it below dignity to express his will and wish, to express what type of behavior actually he likes from the Duchess, and she thought it below dignity, even to hint, even to mention in a hint to Duchess, he thought it below dignity. Otherwise, the tragedy might have been averted if he might have hinted a very little that he did not like this, or the Duchess crosses the limit here and the Duchess is below dignity there in her behavior. Then the Duchess was so noble, so good, so nice, so innocent that she might have amended her behavior. She might have behaved as per will and wish without protest, as per will and wish of the Duke, and the living would have been a happy one. A happy marital living would have been possible, but the false pride excessive possessiveness, jealousy, and tyranny of the Duke destroyed the life of such a noble being as the Duchess. How did the Duke react to the unkind behavior of the Duchess? The Duke kept on tolerating the so-called unkind behavior. The so-called unkind behavior. Why I am using the word so-called unkind behavior of the Duchess? Because actually the Duchess' behavior was not unkind at all. It was very kind, very natural, and full of nobility, decency, and dignity. And since the Duke did not like all such behavior of the Duchess, she thought it below dignity to correct her by giving a hint. So she kept on tolerating, and finally, when it became beyond tolerance, then he ordered, he was a duke, he was all powerful, and he gave the orders, and all smiles stopped together means the on the order of the duke, the duchess was killed. What is the duke's explanation for his cruel treatment of the duchess? The duke explains that the treatment of duchess was cruel on the pretext that she should have learnt to behave like a duchess. She was lacking the qualities of duchess. She would have differentiated between the smile she is giving to an ordinary person on an ordinary gift and the smile she should offer to the duke on the occasion of the gift of the necklace, or she should know that the duke is a great person who is having the name of 900 years, and she should have the dignity of a duchess. So the duke explains and justifies that the treatment of the duchess was cruel and he could not tolerate such a behavior, and finally, out of helplessness, he gave orders and all smiles stopped together. What do you think happened to the duchess? It's very clear, it's ample clear that the duchess was killed on the order of the duke. Evaluate the poem as a dramatic monologue. The poem is a dramatic monologue. As already we have discussed, dramatic means starting suddenly on some incident or event of life, and monologue means where there is only one. Mono means one, single, log means speaker, when the poem, the action proceeds with only and only a single speaker, and listener does not respond, and listener remains listening, and through the speech of the single speaker, various incidents, events, and nature of the people is revealed. Here in this poem, the Duke is the only speaker. Through his speech, the real character of Duke, the real character of Duchess, and something about the neighboring Count is revealed. The tyranny, pride, and greed of the Duke have been shown in sharp contrast to the good nature of the Duchess. Explain, yes, the Duchess and the Duke are very contradictory in nature, in thinking, in character. One side, the Duchess is very simple, innocent, noble hearted, and free from all ill will. She knows no cunningness. She knows no selfish ways of the life. She is purely good at heart. She is noble. She is very nice as a human being, as far as a human being is concerned. But silently she becomes victim to a tyrant, to a proud person, to a possessive person like Duke, without knowing the reason. She becomes a victim to the Duke without knowing the fault of hers. And it's really pathetic that how such a nice, how such a simple, a happy, a noble, a innocent, and full of all goodness, a person like Duchess, who is having all good qualities, and it's really sad, it's really pathetic that such a nice person had become victim to the Duke. As far as the Duke is concerned, from the poem it is ample evident that he is a jealous person, he is full of suspiciosity, he is having nature of possessiveness, and he is full of greed. False dignity, false pride is exposed of the Duke in the poem. If the Duke